Another week, another podcast. Welcome, everybody. And
Hello.
over to you, Oscar, for the introduction this time.
Yeah, I'll introduce the topic for this week. I was thinking recently about the individual and the environment around them, and particularly, this came from a kind of feeling of helplessness you can have sometimes when you're trying to change your habits, and then it never seems to work. You always go back to your old habits or whatever. Um, and the idea is basically that uh, the idea the, the idea the idea is that your environment physically, right, is much greater than you. There is more matter in the universe that is not you than the matter that is you, which there is. It's kind of hard to explain, but metaphysically, that kind of might suggest that you, that might be like a generalization for why your environment overpowers you. So you work somehow together, like you're integrated within your environment, like you evolve with and within your environment to work with it. So you don't work separately from it, and it is still bigger than you. So as an example, there is an individual, and then there's the society. So, and the community and the people around you, your friends, family, and so on. Um, and so you might have to consider, for example, um, you know what the people around you are like, and then consider what your goals are, and if your goals for who you want to be differ a lot from what your friends are like, it's actually going to be very hard for you to change yourself, uh, because like everybody around you is like in opposition to that. Like people don't like change, right?
Can I just step
So
in for a moment?
yeah, go and step
This
in.
sounds really like Conway's game of life, dude. Like,
Yeah,
really good parallels made to this. Like, um, because these rules that, and if someone's not familiar with this game of life, it's like uh, there was this British mathematician guy, John Horton Conway. He
mm,
developed this cellular automaton or whatever kind of game where you make some sort of an initial state. So it's just like a grid of pixels, and then you make whatever changes you want. You know, you can activate some of those pixels, and then you start it, and then the evolution kind of happens and creates these shapes, figures, evolves, like it evolves into something, and it all starts from very simple pixels, but the pixels are following a certain rule set. Like each pixel dies or divides if there's like a certain condition that's met, right? Like if let's just pretend like, oh, if the pixel is being neighbored by 3 pixels, then it dies. If it's neighbored by 2, it creates another one. But anyway, and it's like when you mentioned that it really depends on what kind of friends you have. I started
mm.
thinking about these infinite loops. I don't know if you yourself, Oscar, have like messed around with the game. How
Yeah,
you can there's like stable there's
yeah.
these like stable um, loops or figures or shapes that happen. Like
Hmm.
you can make the game go into a state where a certain uh, grid of pixels evolves into just a stable static thing, and it gets stuck. And despite
Yep.
it's being everything around it is moving, shaping, but unless those other shapes interfere with it
Hmm.
by any way, shape it, change it, this
Yep.
thing is gonna just stay there. It's not gonna move. So
Yep.
I think it's fascinating how these parallels of real life and how you have the friends and how there's the saying of like you are the average of five people you surround yourself
Yeah, yeah.
with, and
I was gonna say that. Yeah.
yeah. So
Um. So yeah, you'd be not surprised to hear that actually part of developing this philosophy that I am right now, I was also going to use Conway's Game of Life uh, to kind of draw these parallels and like show them in an abstract way, in a way that's abstracted from like the human um, society and human psychology, just to show that like these ideas are like very general, you know,
mhm.
um, and kind of create a philosophy around how systems interact with each other. And there's a lot of things about it out there, I'm sure already. But I'm just kind of like a hobbyist in this, I guess. Um, and just kind of making the parallel as you just did there between something as simple as Conway's Game of Life and something that we think is so complex, and we're blinded by this complexity of human psychology, kind of, because we try to understand like parts of human psychology very deeply, but we don't really often step back often enough to make generalizations that you can make with something like Conway's Game of Life, where you just have these simple interactions between things, and it evolves into something complex, and you realize it gets to a point where if you try to study like every single part of it, you're never going to be able to do that because there's too many like different small interactions in there, and
Mm.
it's like the complexity that emerges from it, like this whole thing. So there's a point where like you can study like some more parts of a system once it gets so complex, but you can never like think of it as a whole. But if you look at the beginning of it, and if you also understand this, you know that it's not important to understand the whole system. You only need to understand the part of a system which helps you, which understanding which helps you to move forward to your goal, towards your goals. Uh, so I'm kind of like developing, I guess, my philosophical system around something as simple as Conway's Game of Life, because I think that's how simple life gets.
Yeah, I mean, think about well, let's say even think about what humans are made of, right? We're all made out of matter, the same kind of matter that's all around us. And when you were talking about how the environment is overpowering and etc., yeah, I mean, you're just a smaller collection of matter. And I don't know if atoms are the good way of describing it, or if there's the smaller pieces, uh,
Hmm.
even like smaller than strings, than people were doing the string theory, etc.
Yeah.
I wonder what is the fundamental building block of the
Well,
universe. But like even the DNA, right? The DNA is so simple. It's just those
right.
four different. Again, I'm not a biologist, so I don't remember how those things are called. But like, there's those little pieces, which there's only four kinds of them, and but the way they connect, and those strings that they produce in the long, well, not like long term, but the bigger picture that they create, they can create whatever the hell you want. So
Hmm.
I guess, yeah, I guess we are kind of made
Yeah.
out of those like very small somethings that interact, and uh, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess in this, and what we're trying in the topic of this podcast, the importance isn't so much in which part of the system that you look at, or how small that you look at, how fundamental you look at it. The important part of this conversation, this topic, is exploring how whichever kind of part of the system that you look at, and you look at some individual, something that you can classify within the system. So you can classify a human into its own separate unit in the real world, right?
Yeah,
We can observe something, say in a Conway's Game of Life, like a flying machine that emerges because there's those little things, right?
yeah, yeah.
That that through this weird kind of these simple rules, these things emerge that just seem to be flying through the screen or whatever.
Mhm.
And it's kind of hard to explain with words. And you can look at how that has evolved and how that thing now, as a unit, as an individual, even interacts and is affected by the environment around it, for example.
Mhm.
But yeah, the point of the podcast of the topic of this podcast really is to explore one of those things, which is how yeah your an environment is much greater than you, and it overpowers you, and if you have the ability to change your environment as we as individuals often do, then if you really want to change yourself, probably the best thing to do is to change the environment around you, because your environment is probably always going to want to put you back in your place, you know, just like
Mhm.
people don't like change intrinsically. You know, not many things in the world like change, not just sentient things just don't like change, you know, unless you apply a force to them. You know, if a rock's just laying there, unless you apply a force to it, it doesn't move. Same way you have to apply a force to a human if you're going to change them in some way. You know, it's going to. I mean, it's a strange parallel between the physical and the psychological, but yeah, people don't like change. I think we can agree on that.
Yeah.
And so, if you try to be different, right, in the environment that you live in, you know, people aren't necessarily going to support you, right? They might try to subvert you in some non-obvious ways, but that's you know that's trying to um, analyze this more deeply. But the general idea is that your environment is much greater than you, and you're probably better off thinking about what you can change about your environment, or try to accept your environment for what it is and accept yourself for what you are as well.
Mm.
Um, and you know, the other bigger example from that is how you have humans and then you have the planet Earth. And the humans try to organize the Earth in a way that suits them, and then the planet Earth always fights back, right?
Mm.
Uh, Crashing down buildings with earthquakes, you know, flooding cities with tsunamis, and we try to have all this structure of our own, and then planet Earth, which is much greater and more powerful than us, it's just like no.
Hmm.
So it's putting us back in our place, and then you know, global warming, right? Again, planet's like no, you can't just do that.
Mm.
You gotta play by the rules, you know.
Yeah, there are these rules and systems set up, even if those bigger, greater rules have emerged from all these simple particles and stuff.
Yeah, well, the simplicity of this theory is that the rules are kind of it's kind of like democracy, if you like.
Mm.
The majority vote wins. So if the majority of the system plays the game one way, you're gonna have to play the game like they do, or you're going to have to convince them why they should change,
Mm.
right? And like we can personify the environment that it does things one way, and then we like break away and try to do things another way, and there's this like constant fight between the human and the environment. Like we have some sort of a disagreement, and we try to you know we have some conflict with the environment, and it fights back. And
Yeah.
in the same way as an individual in a society, you know, you try to make change. People aren't happy. Um,
Well, yeah, I guess it's like, you climb a mountain, right? But you go too high. That's it. First of all, the gravity is constantly pulling you down, but the environment up there is not friendly. You shouldn't live on Mount Everest, right? They don't want us going up there. It's cold. There's no air. So it's like, yep, we gotta live around sea level. Because if you go too deep, that's it. The pressure's too hard. We can't survive there either. Um, yeah, it's just simple, stupid parallel that I found with like this idea that your environment is like shaping you to where you're supposed to be. So I guess us
mhm.
humans, these creatures, are being forced to stay around here on Earth. Because, like, it was always a fascination of people of what scale are we in. If you've seen the movie, the animated movie Horton, the elephant who found this little flower, and then inside that flower there was like a tiny population of these little, I don't know, it's like suricata looking creatures, like those I don't know, just kind of weird looking things, and then he knew that they're there somehow because he heard them or whatever. Like it's weird, but like he's like, oh, I don't see them. I don't know how they look like, but I know they're there. So think into that flying machines, or the machine that creates those like flying creatures or those whatever. At the base level, you have the pixels interacting with each other, and then they make up these bigger, let's say those flying objects, which then interact with each other on a higher level, where
Mm.
those
Yeah.
now the pixels are being shaped by each other. But then those machines, once you, or rather those objects, those flying ones, which is a higher level of that. But then you go on an even higher level, and then you see that those flying objects are only just a part of a bigger organism. It's like how some people create computers with the game of life, transistors, and
Hmm.
to make the big machines and fascinating structures with it. So it's almost like we humans are a bigger part of the puzzle for sure, because we know that there's all this microbiome in us. We have these bacteria and all these smaller organisms which are inside, and then they are just there, and they make us up.
Yeah.
And a simple out of place virus. I mean, look at what we have now. The virus which interacts with us a bit differently.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure there, you know what like resonance is in physics, when a wave resonates with another wave, they can either cancel each other or create a bigger wave. So
Hmm.
it's like us taking vitamins and the probiotics, and then like yogurts, and things that restore our, I guess our good gut bacteria or whatever. And then the same way you can have those viruses which are uh, dissonating with us.
Yeah.
I mean, you let that thing into your body, like let's say COVID. Just it
Hmm.
doesn't matter how you let it in, but you allow it to interfere with the closed system that is your body and your immune system, and it messes with it because maybe it wasn't designed to be there. Maybe it just found the correct rules to mess with, like mess your system up. I don't know, but yeah, I was thinking it's fascinating how there's just bigger and bigger, and now you have the Earth, then you have the planets, because we've discovered that there's planets and stuff. I wonder how big and how small all this whole system is, because the smaller you go, you see differences. You see uh, these again bacteria, right? So it's not that they are a smaller scale of human, right? And the planets, they aren't really a bigger scale of human too. Uh, but this probably is where the Mandelbrot set comes into play, because you see how when you zoom in, all those patterns change, right? So you don't just have like a fractal where you have something which is bigger than itself, but it makes up itself and it's bigger than that itself. It's not to say that we have like smaller scale humans running around in our immune system, and then we are bigger humans and then bigger humans. So I wonder how like small or big you need to go in order to see these patterns repeat or whatever.
Yeah. That's a weird tangent.
Yeah, I get it.
Uh,
It's not.
Mandelbrot sets are something kind of like engineered by us, and uh, specifically something we're looking for, and we replicated it millions of times because it looks cool. It's like the chances of it like appearing at randomly in nature. I don't know if it does.
It
Um,
doesn't have to, but it's also governed by simple rules. Mathematical
yeah, well,
calculations and stuff.
different sorts of simple rules. Yeah. Um,
Yeah, but this still is a tangent on
yeah,
our topic, which would be.
I was gonna say on your point though, on your earlier point of, um, yeah, how there's like smaller things that make our microbiology and stuff, and like the virus and stuff. Like, what if we are the virus of like the universe? Right?
Yeah,
Like
that may just be
we're
it,
gonna
right?
spread to other planets, and then the universe is like shit. It's spreading, and we gotta stop it. And we try to start to like vaccinate planets and shit.
What if planets are actually the viruses in the greater uh,
Right.
universe, and we are just an absolutely meaningless, irrelevant, you know, yeah, dust that appeared on this virus, which is the Earth, let's say, or yeah, like again, I'll keep repeating this word, but it is fascinating. It's like
Mhm.
it overwhelms my brain when I start to think about it. just I just can't compute. I think if I continue thinking about it too much, I may just have a kernel panic and it's just like my brain will shut off, man. Like
Yeah. I think to remember is like none of it fucking matters. Yeah. Um,
yeah, might be.
Most of the things that we say is like there's two realities. Let's say, okay,
Hmm.
let's say there are two realities. There's the physical reality, and then there is our personal, um, subjective reality.
Mm,
There is a there's a perspective that you have, a unique way in which you see the world. And there is some general way that humans see the world because of our biology and society, and this the passing on of ideas through language and text and paper and pen. Uh, what was I saying?
you were talking about something while I was actually looking at caterpillars.
Oh, so
Um,
you're like,
I was
well,
I was listening, but I was like, man, what would be the biggest that we could make out of the Conway's game of life, right? Supposedly there's this thing with like 11 million.
anyway, I was saying I remembered. Um, when you weren't listening. Um, I was saying that I'm just blanking. Yeah, I'm too tired today.
Yeah, I know that you were talking about the psychology and then like how humans are the virus of the
Oh yeah,
universe.
sorry. Yeah, no, yeah.
Sorry.
As that wasn't that's before. Yeah, I was just talking about the way. See, it's such a metaphysical fucking idea that I can't. It's too hard for me to conceptualize, right?
Oh
Or
yeah, that's what
conceptualize
you
right now.
said because we had like the physical reality and then we have our personal
Yes. Okay.
realities and stuff. Yeah, I heard that.
Yeah, subjective reality. So there is ideas that we have that we hold as truths, but our truths that we have are attempts to model the world, the physical reality. Our subjective reality is our attempt to model the physical reality the best way that we can. We're limited by our processing power of our brain and all of its abilities. Um, and so we constantly are trying to model the physical reality the better that we can, so that we have a larger control of it, control over it.
Hmm.
So we're trying to be in control over the system around us, for survival and thriving. Let's say. Um, and our subjective reality, the thing of it is that there are some things in science that are there's a lot of science that's very good at modeling the physical reality very well, particularly physics. And then there's lots of things, maybe not even in science, but let's take it out of science, and like conversation and convictions that you have, and opinions and ideas that you have that are subjective reality, and they're what we might call rationalizations of the real world, of the physical reality. The physical reality is actually what is physically happening in the world. And then we have these kind of rationalizations for why it's happening, and we have them all the time, right? And they can be different from one person to another, and they can be as good in a small subsystem at predicting something, uh, for a very specific context that you have. But when you have two people, you have one subset of physical reality, and you have two people with different opinions. It doesn't mean that one person must be right and the other must be wrong. It might very well be that both of them are like 10% of um 10% right, I guess. Let's say
Mm-hmm.
at modeling some ideal of the physical reality, some sort of a model, or they're trying to model two separate parts of the physical reality, and they think they're modeling the same part. And this is where it's getting metaphysical, and it's like I don't have the brains right now to conceptualize it any
Mm.
further. I
You
don't know
think
if you know what I'm getting at.
you think their models are also influenced by a certain rule set that they have, the people themselves? They create their
Yeah, I
own
mean their
theories and stuff.
biology, the fact they're humans, and yeah, of course. And yes, all I'm saying is that the neither of them has to be right or wrong. They can just have a rationalization that's good, that they both think is like if they're in a conversation, they think they're both trying to model. You never speak about or think about it like this, but trying to model, right, a certain piece of physical reality. So let's say you've got two friends and they're like talking about why their third friend that's not there did something stupid that he did, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then both of them have like an idea, a rationalization of it, of why he did it, and they're like arguing with each other of who's right. And the fact of the matter is that, like, okay, there's like, first of all, incomplete data. You don't know all the details of the situation, so already like person A in a conversation and person B can be spawning different ideas of what actually happened, right?
Yeah.
Different playbacks of the situation, if you like, with the information that they have, and you fill in the gaps with your own experiences from the past and so on and so forth. Um,
And just, I mean,
and so
also add a variable of the relationship that you have to the person, and then maybe, one of them, it's like that interview that people did about the Trump supporters and stuff. They came up and be like, gave them a quote. I don't wanna say the quote or whatever, and they're like, "Oh, what do you feel about Trump now when he said that?" And they're like, "Oh, did Donald Trump say that actually? No, I actually still support him. I'll vote for him." And then after that, the interviewers actually revealed that the quote was not from Donald Trump; it was from Adolf Hitler. And those people were like, "Oh, oh, that's not good. Yeah." So they're like, "Oh, so do you support Adolf Hitler?" He's like, "No, we do. No, absolutely not. Like, this is terrible things that he said." But then
yeah,
they just are blinded by the person that they support. Therefore, whatever they say supposedly is gonna be true, or they're gonna perceive it as true. So I mean, yeah, you also need to take into consideration the relationship that you have with the person or the subject, and having the
yeah.
you
So
know
that's like one specific aspect of it, but I'm trying to generalize here as much as possible because the systems get so complex that look into particular parts of it and try to again rationalize, but as we are, we're rationalizing about the conversation, an imagined conversation between two people where they're trying to rationalize. You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
So I'm trying to like generalize as much as possible of what we're already talking about with the two people there. Um, just giving like an example.
Yeah, I mean that's fair.
But
You
yeah,
know,
so
if
the point is,
someone
so like what I'm saying is like what I'm actually trying. The point I'm trying to get to is most of the time nobody is actually right.
absolutely.
Right? People are, we're trying to convince each other of one thing being right and wrong, and we probably, we will end up agreeing on something or disagreeing forever, and we might come to a conclusion that yeah, this is a truth, but in a grander scheme of things, it's like no, we just like we like the comfort of thinking that we actually are certain about something, so we accept it as a truth or whatever, where it's so subjective. It's not very good at modeling the real world at all. um and it might work in a very like specific context as well, for which we're discussing, and maybe like no context, like no other person, like our rationalization might not apply to anybody else but our friend, right?
Mhm.
For example. But and then it's like, yeah, what is your subjective truth? It's like it has no, it's so insignificant, right? Until like you begin to work in a system of like, you get into science, and then you try, you read, the ideas and the theories that we've already developed over thousands of years, right? Or hundreds of years. Let's say mathematics, thousands of years, right?
Mm.
And like you build on top of that, and it's like, yes, we agree on all of these things, and it's like they are somehow very good at helping us. They're very general. A lot of the maths, maths is really about like trying to create general rules for modeling the world. Um, and I was like, yeah, that's like the basic idea. Is like how accurately and how generally can you model the real world, and
Yeah.
then you can get more specific, and you can look at like more specific contexts, like we use machine learning for um, nowadays. But then you can get tunnel vision, and forget about the wider context. And it's like, but how much can you generalize, right? And I know I'm going on like so many tangents, but that's the thing with this topic. It's like
Yeah,
with
but I feel
metaphysics.
like you're making justice. Like it's fine. The although what I find in a situation where I'd need to like try and support an argument or whatever, it's like you never know what's true, what's right, right? So in that case, you might
Yeah,
have your own subjective truth, but then
yeah,
it's like
yeah,
Socrates, he knew that you just can't know everything or can't know something for sure. Therefore, you're just like there. One of my favorite emotes, actually, I think I need to make a bind for it. Is that shrugging man made out of
hmm,
ASCII character? Well, it's not
right,
entirely ASCII characters because I think it includes that Japanese symbol, but it's made out of those text characters where there's just like a dude just like shrugging, being like, I don't know. Because usually
yeah,
that's how I feel, and I don't know. Like
yeah.
I don't know. That's the thing, I don't fucking know what the answer is, and
Here's the thing, right?
yeah.
A really important point I've got for you right here. Another thing that I've been thinking about
Hmm.
is what you really want is you want to feel in control, right? Like you want to feel that like the things in your life you've got under control, right? And when you get into conversations a lot, and we get in lots of conversations in the podcast right here, right?
Hmm.
You don't really want to let me subvert your opinions too much. Like you want to stand your ground, because like ultimately, if you think about it, if most of the shit that we're saying is like so subjective, it has no relevance to most things, most like wide contexts. It's
Hmm.
like very subjective. It doesn't like matter. Like you have to develop your own sort of like um structure. Like if you let other people subvert the structure that you have in any conversation that you have with people, it's like you're never going to be sure of anything,
Yep.
because everybody has their own ideas and their own beliefs, and trying to like going to try to change your like view of the world to fit theirs in a conversation because it's comfortable. And some people want to be open-minded, and I used to want to be really open minded. Like I wanted to have my mind changed, right? And it's like, yeah, it gets to a point where you realize that unless it's science and unless it, it's going to help me in like with a career or anything in life, what's more important, I think, is certainty.
Mm. Yeah.
Having some beliefs, like how people say it's important to have a belief system, like it's important to religion, for example.
True.
Maybe it doesn't have to be religion, but maybe it just has to be some sort of a belief system that you stand strongly behind, even though it might be like 90% like, well, largely subjective, and like because it's not modeling anything, like it's not engineering, you're not trying to build a bridge, right? You're just trying to make decisions on things that are mostly unimportant, right?
Yeah.
Like there's things that are not going to have an effect. So instead of like caring whether you've got the most correct opinion, or you're making the most correct decision, just be like, yo, this is my belief system. I'm going to make this decision because it follows within my belief system, and I don't give a shit.
Yep. That sounds
And then
like a masculine feature that would be
um
required of today's, men, I'd imagine.
yeah, and I feel like this is a thing we do subconsciously, like we have to do it because there's so much bullshit out there and everybody trying to push their own agenda and their own ideas, that you have to stand your ground, and you can't just let your mind be changed by anybody all the time. uh, because then like your ideas are just like never settled, like they're all like a mixed bag of everybody's, what everybody is saying, and then like you don't know anything, like
Yeah. Yeah, I guess that's
uh,
true. Although in another sense, if let's say you have some ideas, but someone is trying to present theirs or trying to even force theirs, you may
mhm,
just accept them, but not. Um, Maybe accept is the wrong word. Then it's like,
listen to them, yeah.
yeah, kind of listen to them and be like, yeah, I see the point, but then, you know,
Yeah, but don't really.
yeah, it's like when anytime a religious fanatic approached me, I'd be like,
Yeah.
yeah, I do understand. I do see where you're coming from. I agree. It's good that it is working for you. And then they would just go as far as to be like, yo, man, can I just pray with you, pray for you? I'm like, sure. He's like, can I put my hand on your shoulder? I'm like, sure. So they would goddamn put their hand on my shoulder, start praying about, oh, our Lord, blah blah, let this man, find his path and stuff. Like hoping that he comes to the right way or whatever. I'm like, yeah, thank you, amen. All that, amen. And I'd just be like, all right,
Hmm.
that guy felt good. I'm happy that they fulfilled their purpose of spreading love or whatever. My
Yeah.
beliefs weren't changed, but from the perspective of
Yeah.
that person, they might have felt that they did something, and then maybe in a way they did do something, because I still to this day remember that moment, and I'd be like, wow, that person did have such a strong belief in something. Then I still remember that person because it's cool, like they are believing in something, and it doesn't
Yeah.
necessarily have to be like science backed beliefs, as you mentioned. Like you just have your own thing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah. For sure. I'm
but
not
yeah.
saying like you should shut people down and be like, yo, I don't want to hear your point of view or whatever. Like, it's just normal. Like, you don't have to accept what, like, take in what they're saying, accept it. You just listen to them out. You just have a conversation. It doesn't necessarily mean they're going to change your mind.
Yeah. I mean,
Like, it might open you up to a new ideas within your own belief system, but, you know,
yeah, that's the
when
thing,
at a point
everyone's
where,
everyone's got their own reality. That's true, just as you mentioned. Everyone's got their own
um,
rules they abide they the rules that they live by, you know, morals that they have. Um they can converse and try to present their own way of life,
yeah.
but the end of the day, they're both gonna go home, just do whatever the hell they did yesterday. The same way.
Hmm.
One of them might be a wife beater, or whatever. The other guy might be a saint. It's just the way it is.
Yeah.
I don't know. Interesting thoughts, man. Yeah, it's goddamn psychology. I guess it's all also made up of smaller pieces, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
These
No, it is.
these belief systems that we have, they're probably also formed from some very simple way of the way our brain work or something, and then the reasonings that we do each time we encounter something new, and then we need to make up our mind for like it. We do go
Mhm.
through some sort of a reasoning when we try to like assess a situation or whatever. Like,
Yeah.
like like I don't know, man.
Yeah. I mean, like, just one specific way. Like, yeah, yeah. That's the other thing is like when we try to understand these complex systems, like, well, human psychology. It's it's like we try to understand like one small part of it, and we can classify that in it, and it can actually like accurately model like that part of human psychology. But if you try to extend that or incorporate it into like some grand theory of human psychology and human behavior, right, some sort of a system for predicting what a human is going to do at any moment given enough data that you have on them,
Mm,
uh, it's like you realize that, oh well, actually it's like, yeah, it works in this context, like very small context, but like if I try to generalize it, it doesn't really like it becomes apparent that like the model that you had of it is kind of paralleled with lots of different places where you have a similar model. And
yeah.
I don't know, but
I mean, in a way, dude, gotta be honest. For me personally, it's easier with people. When it comes to those
yeah,
motherfuckers who crawl, snakes, spiders and shit, I see them motherfuckers. They got 8 legs and stuff. I don't know what they're gonna do to me. I just, bruh, I just avoid them. Humans, sure. You see a man, you can be like, this guy's a druggie. This guy's this and that. You can kind of like assess the situation, and be like, yeah, I
yeah.
either stay away or go or whatever. But when I see those crawlers, worms and stuff, bro, I'm scared of those things too. I don't know what they're
Yeah.
gonna do. Look at the spider. I see my friend. He takes a spider and he's like, "Yeah, look, it's a spider. He's not gonna do anything to it." I'm like, "Yeah, but look at his mouth. He's got those teeth and stuff. What if he like starts biting you? What if he's poisonous too? It's just
Hmm.
it's not good. It's not good. But at the same time, it's not something I understand. That guy, on the other
Yeah.
hand, the snake keeper guy, he understands it. Therefore, he can have like he can wrestle with a cobra or whatever his snake is called, like, and like a poisonous snake. He's got Scorpios and stuff. He's got Scorpios, and
Are you
he
speaking of an
like,
actual person here?
hmm?
You're speaking of an actual
Yeah,
person.
like and I probably introduced his. I think I showed you a video of his or whatever. But the idea is that like, well, actual person, because that's the only experience I have with those animals and creatures. But I'm sure that there's a lot of people who actually understand that part of biology. But it's just an example to make it simple to understand. There's a person who understands it, therefore it's easier for them to navigate such an environment like Amazon jungle or safari or something, right?
Mhm.
As to where I'd
Right.
go there and I'd be like, oh man, there's something that's rattling in there in the in the bushes.
You'd die.
I'd just
You'd
die
die
out
pretty
there,
quick.
dude. But I do know that the person might actually be struggling slightly with like let's say computer skills or whatever, right? I may
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
navigating a digital landscape a bit better than them, let's say. I
Hmm.
don't know. I might be less susceptible to phishing or hacking attacks or whatever. And just
Probably.
now that I've put this out there, now that this is on air, what's that? Challenge accepted. Anybody, right? Oh, we'll see. We'll
Yeah.
see.
Anybody listen this far to the podcast, I think they
Yeah, they
They
should be.
deserve to steal all your money.
Yeah, just go and hack me. Uh,
Yeah.
nah, I mean to be fair, don't hack me. I don't got anything. If you want, it's like I was.
It's got Unity stuck.
I got Unity stock, which is falling down and stuff. Anyway, a quick tangent is we were talking about the habits that people fall back into, right? And
Right.
I was talking
Oh yeah.
on how I deleted Tinder because I was like, nah, this is not happening, dude. Just not really gonna find someone with the similar belief systems and then something there that we could vibe with together and stuff. And I again like installed it, hoping that there's gonna be something different. It's just like the same thing. You tell yourself, that's it. I'm eating healthy. I'm not eating this goddamn sugar thing. And in a week, I still take that sugar, eat it, and be like, oh, I feel so bad again. I knew that was gonna feel bad. Why did I eat it? So it's like, so it's with this Tinder. I'm back on Tinder, but whatever. Idea is I'm swiping, and there's this lady who's like, oh, this is my new Tinder account because someone hacked my like what, and then there like a PS from her was like, why would someone want to hack my Tinder? I still don't get it, but so yeah, I was like, well, interesting, yeah. So if someone wants to hack my Tinder and I can give you my password
Get,
if you want. Just use my
get you
Tinder.
some boots.
To be fair, it doesn't have a password, I think. Yeah, it doesn't even have a password. So if you figure out how to get in, if you figure out how to find although again, it's the same debate of the audience of Tinder, at least in the United Kingdom, is 90% male. Therefore,
Right.
um, there's way less choice. On top of that, I don't know if we're talking about the environment again, what kind
Mhm.
of ladies I'd find on there. And again, me being unlucky in the search on that platform probably just means that, well, that environment is not really for me. Like that
Bro, you're
is
told that environment is exactly for you.
your what?
That's all they're looking at. You're right. Well, not all. That's a
No,
lie.
but
Not all.
yeah,
But if you are told,
but what I mean is like the environment of what kind of people you can find on there, right? I'm sure that there's people who I would be hoping for, some smart, like I don't know, a lady with a good belief system or moral compass that I vibe with or whatever the hell. I don't even know what I'm talking about. I don't know what like what a good match is, but what I'm saying is high quality women probably don't exist on Tinder. If they do, then because I mean maybe it's just not the connotation, like the vibe that Tinder gets when you say the word. It's just like people know that it's not a platform for like real relationships and like I don't know, man. It's hard to say what I'm looking for. It's hard to say what I'm not looking for. Everything's meaningless anyway, so it's just
right.
oh well. I know again talking about the habits that you fall back into. I know that I shouldn't be looking for anything because if there's a time and it's meant to be. It's just gonna be meant to be. That's my belief system. I know that nature's
Yeah.
gonna take care of
Perhaps.
itself. But then I break my belief
Maybe.
system by going back and swiping. it's so it's so dumb. Humans like I'm just an ape, dude. I feel like a fucking orangutan or some shit. I'm not a
Um.
bonobo though. I'm not a bonobo. I wouldn't be hooking up though. I feel like Tinder's full of bonobos then. Cause they
Yeah. I don't
monkeys,
know.
they monkeys do sexual activities for pleasure, man.
Yeah, that's like humans are what against that right now. Some humans like you.
Yeah.
Like what? Sexual activity for pleasure? Ooh,
Oh,
that is a sin.
a sin. Well,
Yeah.
with a person you do not have any.
Yes,
connection with.
premarital. uh,
No, that's
um,
a Christian belief, but my belief again is like a person that you don't have a genuine connection with. That's what I meant. It's like
right. And that's your belief system. That's the
just
thing. You gotta
randomly.
stick with it.
Yeah,
You gotta stick with it.
that's what I mean, dude. Randomly like hiking out with someone. I don't know,
Because at
dude.
the end of the day, it doesn't matter.
Nothing matters, man.
It's like unless what is the goal? The goal is to be in control. What is the goal of science? Where you're trying to model physical reality. It's like, okay, we've all got the same goal. Well, most people don't understand it. Uh, but the goal is, model physical reality as accurately as you can, so you can make predictions, and that's science. And then you've got the rest of the world, the rest of our mental space, and it's just like, I want to have, I want to understand. I want to find my purpose. I want to have beliefs. I want to have control. So I
Yeah.
have to have beliefs. Maybe you don't understand it, but you do. Um, yeah. And so, yeah, Conway's Game of Life, bringing it back to that. It's why I'm so excited by it. It's I think it's a good proxy for explaining these abstract metaphysical ideas that I have. I think Conway's Game of Life, and looking at like particular parts of it and drawing the parallel, like you can actually like showing it visually and drawing a parallel between that and the real world, or even humans' interaction within the society, um, and their grander environment of Mother Nature and the universe. It's like Conway's Game of Life, I think, is one way of really effectively, uh, like showing that, like communicating that. I think it's great. Yeah,
Yeah, man.
that's why
Has
I'm so
has
excited by it.
anyone made any goddamn massive simulations? Because I was like, I'm looking for this. Like, there's supposedly this caterpillar, which looks whatever the hell it looks like. I'm just more interested in taking a grid, which is like
Mm-hmm.
a million by a million at least,
Yeah,
and like randomly scattering, like not necessarily, just totally not looking for patterns, anything, just randomizing the starting order and doing
yeah,
like 100,000 generations at least, seeing
yeah,
where it goes. I'd
yeah.
be interested in seeing what kind of bigger uh like greater patterns emerge from that. So because I just googled like the biggest Conway or whatever, and I don't think I found the what I was looking for. I think I should
Search
Google
for
a bit.
random Conway's Game of Life.
No, it's more about like what was the
Random.
biggest simulation that was run on this, like a
Um,
biggest scale, because this caterpillar was like, I'm not saying that it was small, because probably it took quite some computational power. However, I also seen a post about someone who has managed to optimize it. So I'd imagine finding the most optimized algorithm for this simulation and then just running it on like a huge scale thing,
yeah.
like Guinness World Records kind of huge scale, to see how it would all look like when you zoom out, like when you actually
Mm-hmm.
zoom out. So like, I mean, that's what it is, the cellular automata. But like, I mean, I guess Stephen Wolfram would probably already been doing something like that with this research. I just had this idea,
Yeah.
like, create my own kind of simulation thing and just run it like a huge ass, um,
Yeah.
like a big grid. Because in a way, if each rule is defined, and this system is deterministic in a way, because each rule. So what it means is you can simulate that, not necessarily in real time, right? It's literally, uh, let's say if it takes like a minute to do each cycle, you can just run it for like just run the simulation and until all the
Yeah.
calculations are done
But I
and
guess
stuff.
I guess the thing is, like, where you want the kind of complexity where things emerge that you can, like some things that look almost like they could have been designed by somebody, right?
Hmm.
to work, like, like some people do with Conway's Game of Life, where they actually, like, initialize it like in a specific way.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, so like if you want that to emerge from like just pure chaos, randomness, like you also have to take into consideration that you would probably have to take like simulate a very very big grid to find that emergence. Like if you look at life on Earth, how hard is it? Like how far have we looked so far and haven't found anything similar to what we have life on Earth?
yeah. No, I
You
mean,
know,
totally. I
so
mean,
it's not only like simulating like a certain size of a grid. Like the grid would grow exponentially the size that you have to simulate of it randomly. That you would actually find like randomly generate some complex systems, not just something appearing and then disappearing, into uh into nothingness again, into a disorder.
yeah.
uh but like actually like a system that you can observe for a long period of time
Man,
that
that's why the
emerges.
universe is expanding, you know? It's like someone created that. Everyone's talking about this Big Bang. It wasn't a Big Bang, it was Conway. He just put up a few dots and like let it go and it just started like growing and growing and growing. The man hit the
Right.
jackpot, you know? Hit the correct starting order. And then all these planets which are supposedly like or the galaxies or I don't know what they're saying, the galaxies which are going further away from other galaxies and expanding and stuff. That was just um, the fucking nature of it all because you started it in the center and then it just started growing.
Yep.
Man, I'd be
And
interested in like
also,
making something like that, like a big simulation like that. I
yeah,
don't know much about optimization, sadly, but um,
I was going to, one of the things you want to think about in that especially is probably caching. Like what sort of a size of a grid can you simulate at a time that you can cache it in your like M1 cache or whatever, right?
mm,
And then like you also don't want a time sharing system probably where different processes share the time, because it's going to keep switching and fucking up your efficiency. Like you want one of those batch executing systems. I don't know what you call them. You got those
mm,
computers that just do one thing and they
mm,
don't do anything else.
yeah.
But you want that if you're going to simulate something like this efficiently. Yeah,
Yeah, that'd be interesting. Yeah, it's. I mean, probably
because
need a because
I've
brute
thought about that as well.
forcing.
So it'd be really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, because goddamn brute forcing like billions on billions of a grid like that, which is well, again, I said a million on a million at first. That's already
Hmm.
huge. That is already huge. Holy
Hmm.
Jesus, yeah, I can't even begin to imagine on. But yeah, it's an interesting project. We could look into it. That looks that looks like it needs some optimization for sure. I mean, I swear there has to be someone who's done it. I mean, this thing's been out for
No,
like what,
I've sent you one.
52 years and stuff.
I have just sent you a link to somebody who've done it on YouTube. The grid's quite small, but it's like a thing that just repeats over and over. It has gotten into a loop. Um, but where it gets to the point where we can actually like we
Oh, so this is
begin
from a
to
random,
wonder
yeah?
about. Yeah, this is from a random thing. So you got these patterns that are repeating over and over, like it's gotten
Mm.
into a loop. You can see a similar thing
And then
in
it goes and then it stops at 3 minutes 20 and it's just like static.
yeah.
Mm.
And you see the same thing if you look at Langton's ant. It's also a very simple rule set. I would recommend you look it up. Langton's ant. It's an ant, and it basically, if it goes on a black pixel, it turns right. If it goes on a white pixel, it turns left.
Mm.
So basically, if it goes over itself, it turns, and eventually, what happens is gets into a loop, and the loop is called the highway, and it never breaks out of it. It just goes off in one direction and never stops.
Yeah.
So like these systems, and you have to, wonder like when does that happen for us?
Yeah. I mean, no, but this
um,
this grid is like what 50 by 50 max or something.
yeah,
Um,
no, yeah, but the point, yeah, I guess the
yeah.
point is, it's like it's already in a loop. Whereas if you want a system where like maybe some sort of something like that looks like an economy that's happening, right? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like someone that still starts to resemble maybe like simple cells interacting with each other, like and viruses spreading maybe or something, right?
I mean, to be fair,
Something
if
that we could.
if the grid was huge, 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 right? If you
Yeah, I
were
mean, eventually
coming,
you would find that somewhere, right?
yeah, like in one corner, there was a machine which generates flying creatures, and then those flying creatures start flying towards the other end, and then in their way they interact with something, but then something backfires, and then that machine, because I mean, you can't, there are these, as you mentioned, like machines which generate like spit out these flying creatures. That
Mhm.
machine will get interfered by, and then it's gonna stop producing these flying creatures
Yeah,
because someone
yeah,
else.
yeah.
Dude, yeah, wow, it's fascinating.
But
we're gonna come back to this for sure. Um,
sure,
make
yeah,
an episode again on this stuff because it's fascinating, dude. It's the
yeah.
fundamentals of
But
understanding the meaning, you know.
but I guess I'm trying to think what I'm conceptualizing right now, right?
Yeah.
What would be like really impressive like really cool, like magical to see in a Conway's Game of Life? And I think what it would be is again like the same thing that we're looking for in other parts of the universe, something that resembles the way humans interact with each other, you
Ah.
know? And I think to get that sort of complexity, like even on a very like basic level, right? Not people walking around, right? Like huge biological, systems which have like DNA and stuff, but things that maybe just like simulate a simple economy, right?
Mm.
Um, how we used to trade things before we even had language or whatever. Uh, trade a rock for a stick. I don't know,
Yeah.
uh, for a sharp stick. Uh, something very simple, but where you actually look at it and it resembles something that we are familiar with. What kind of a complexity, how long, and what scale of size of a grid would you have to run before you've found something like this?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, we're never gonna know, but trial and error is the way. Like, you're probably gonna try,
And
and
I have some ideas for optimization. I'm planning. I've been planning this for actually, so I really want to get around to this.
uh, I already have
Um,
ideas for marketing this thing and stuff. Imagine creating a website. You run this huge simulation that you start, and then
yeah,
however long it's gonna take to calculate each frame, right? You're just gonna capture that frame and show it on like a website somewhere. So any
yeah,
time you log into that, well, not you. Anytime you open the website, you just see that the current state of the machine that you are running and stuff. Yeah,
yeah.
I mean it's
People
interesting.
actually, you could ask people to share processing power of their computers to participate
Oh,
in your simulation.
cause you could put this thing on a
Because you could
blockchain,
like,
dude.
I mean, you could do that, I guess, but like you could, simulate chunks of it at a time, and when something goes out of border, you just note that down. And so when you
Mm,
simulate the chunk next to it, you have to consider just going over, and like you get to a certain point in a chunk where like you've simulated it so much that like enough things went out the border that there's no point simulating it anymore because it could have been affected by things coming back at it,
mm,
and um but if you could like somehow parallelize it with other people, like where you could give people parts of it to simulate for themselves,
yeah,
um you could like shrink, like if you give them a chunk, and when things reach the border of it, like when say black pixels in this case, the
yeah.
ones that are on reach the border of it and they're going to leave, like shrink the chunk down and simulate smaller and smaller smaller part of it, and then stop it, and then share, send the chunk back and
Oh,
with information. Just
yeah,
ideas,
yeah. I mean, to be fair, that all sounds very cool, and we probably have to talk about this off air to
Yeah,
conceptualize it more. But yeah, it's been a pleasure talking this time. Absolutely, freaking
yeah. Meh, you
great
as well.
ideas out here,
You
man.
as well. Yeah,
We've been at it for an hour. I think we good.
time flies, man.
Time flies, dude. Anyway, I appreciate the conversation, Oscar, and we'll
Yeah, thank you, man.
see y'all next week, boys.
See you.